happening?
I blew up the building!
Why?
Because you made a phone call!
From the world-famous Blackbird Studios, it's the Rave X Podcast. And now, Rave X.
He had to blow up an entire goddamn building because dumb Will Smith made a mother effing phone call. Wow. Thanks for tuning into the podcast, the Rave X Podcast, episode 108, Paranoia. I'm your host, Keith David. Now let's just get into some of the criteria here of what we're talking about. These are movies that exhibit signs of extreme paranoia, either in the characters, the villains, in you. Maybe you watched a movie and it made you feel super paranoid, you know? But these are movies where you can see on screen that people are paranoid out of their effing mind. And we got a great list for you, kids, a great list. Thanks for tuning in. And with that being said, let's dive in. So I'm just kicking back here in the world-famous Blackbird Studios, you know, a couple of days after Thanksgiving, man. Everything is calm, and I figured, let me bang out a podcast for you guys, man. You guys are so good to me. I look at the ratings. The ratings are constantly going up. My subscriber count, the views are constantly going through the roof. So I would honestly just like to say thank you, and I'm glad you enjoy the show, man. It's fun for me to do it. Now, with all that dumb stuff being said, paranoia. Paranoia. You guys know anyone who's ever been paranoid? I used to have a friend who was super paranoid about everything, you know, like the government's listening on his phone and this, that, and the other thing. And he thinks that the person at the convenience store at the corner was following him the other day. And I said, yeah, you know what the problem is? You smoke too much pot. That's your problem. So in these movies, to the best of my knowledge, no one is smoking pot, but a bunch of paranoid people. Let's go to 2014 to a movie called It Follows. I don't know if you guys ever seen this movie. It Follows. It's a really weird horror movie starring Micah Monroe and Jake Weary. And this is a really funny movie because a woman has sex with a guy, kind of like a hookup, you know, and then this demon just starts following her. And the demon can kind of take the shape of just regular people. So you're walking down the street, and next thing you know, you look behind you and you're like, is that dude in the Red Sox cap still behind me? Then you turn a corner and he's standing right there. Then you go home and he's in your hallway. And I guess as long as you don't let them touch you, you're okay. But the only way to get rid of this weird sort of curse, demon hex, is to have sex with someone else. And once you have sex with someone else, that demon then starts to follow them around. And, you know, to the best of my knowledge, you don't really see the demon kill anyone in the movie. It's just so freaky because it will drive you crazy. I mean, you can be waiting for the bus, and you'll see a woman just standing there with a blank expression. And you're like, oh, okay, whatever. And then you get on the bus, you get off the bus 3 miles later, and she'll be standing across the street. Then you go to work, and you look across the office, and that same woman is standing there by the bathroom door with a blank expression on her face. And the poor girl in this movie, Micah Monroe, she just goes crazy, you know what I mean? And she figures out that she got it. It all started once she had sex with this dude. And you realize that the guy kind of had sex with her to get rid of this hex. So she finds someone and she's like, I'm so sorry, after the fact. So first she has sex with the guy and she's like, I'm so sorry, and she leaves, and next thing you know, the hex demon starts following the guy. It's a really creepy but original horror story called It Follows from 2014, and you can see why this is on the list of people who are paranoid. It can be anyone in the crowd. The only thing that's different is they just have a blank facial expression. It kind of reminds me of a movie that came out a little while ago called Smile, where you're looking around a crowd and there's one person just staring at you smiling. And then you get in your car and you drive 20 miles. You get out the car and there's a person staring at you smiling. These little things are genius because it doesn't need blood and gore. It just needs to invoke a sense of fear and paranoia inside of you, and your mind will take care of the rest. From 2014, some paranoid motherfuckers. It Follows. So this next one, man, it's one of my favorite movies. This is one of these rare movies that has been remade a few times. You can take your pick. There's a 1951 version. There's a 1982 version. That's what we're going to talk about here. There's also a version from 2011 starring Mary Elizabeth Winstead. I'm talking about The Thing, baby, starring Kurt Russell and Wilford Brimley. Now, some of you younger kids probably don't remember who Wilford Brimley is. I think he did like an oatmeal commercial, but he's probably most famous for like, "Hi, I'm Wilford Brimley. Do you got the diabetes? You should call this number." That's who Wilford Brimley is. So Kurt Russell, one of his first sort of big starring roles after Escape from New York, I believe. In this movie, they're up in like the Antarctic and stuff, and some scientists find an alien, but the alien has the power to take the shape of anything, even a dog. You guys have seen The Thing, right? Now, for me, this freaked me out because it's one of these movies where anybody could be the monster, right? And isn't that the scariest thing in the world? You know, you go into work, it could be your coworker, it could be your next door neighbor, it could be the goddamn mailman. You know, could be the alien, man. And it's really tough, you know, you have to kind of trick it and then it will kind of show its true colors. And they always try to burn it, but it gets away. And at one point it's the dog. And from what I remember, at the very end, the two guys, Kurt Russell and the other black dude, they opt to like not escape because they're not sure which one might have the alien inside of it. And I believe they opt to just stay there and freeze to death so that this monster doesn't get to the mainlands, you know what I mean? Really crazy movie. But everyone in the movie is constantly paranoid because anyone, maybe even you, could be the alien. From 1982, The Thing. Oh, here's a good one. I saw this movie when I was way too young. I don't know why. My mom would let me watch these scary movies. From 1978, Invasion of the Body Snatchers. This is such a scary movie. Probably another one that they have redone a few times. And you know, the premise is there's aliens, man. And they kidnap you and they wrap you up in this goo. And then there's a pod, and they hatch another version of you out of this pod. And so eventually the whole race will just be aliens. You know, won't be any more humans anymore, man. Just a bunch of crazy, evil aliens. Donald Sutherland is in this movie. You might know him as the father of the great Kiefer Sutherland. And Jeff Goldblum also. I believe Spock is in this movie as well. And boy, this movie, the end, the very end of this movie, is one of the scariest things you'll ever see. Donald Sutherland and this woman, can't remember her name, but they're doing a really good job of getting away from these aliens. And the thing is, when the aliens would see you, because they're walking around, you know, when they would see you, they would point at you. And they would point at you and make this sound like, ooh. And then they would alert the other aliens to grab you, and eventually you got all gunked up. And then they grew another one of you in a pod, and that was that. And at the very end, they kind of get separated in like a crowd, you know? And as some time goes by, I don't know how much time goes by, maybe a couple of weeks, couple of months, but the woman sees Donald Sutherland. And she like goes to run up to him because she's happy. She's like, "Oh my God, he's okay. And like she says something to him, you know, about like, if you just don't show any emotion, that's how you can get by, and they'll never find out. And Donald Sutherland turns to her and he looks at her and he points at him and goes, ooh. It is the craziest thing, man. What a horrible ending. But of course, everyone's paranoid, you know, because you have to keep up your appearances when you're around these aliens. You have to act like you have no emotions. And that's the only way you can sort of survive. You have to just walk looking straight ahead. Don't blink, don't laugh, don't cry, don't speak. And at the end, when she thinks that he's okay, it turns out that they got him too. Man, I would be paranoid. I would just never leave the house. I would be eating my carpet if I had to. I have a pretty nice shower curtain. I'd probably have to eat that because I would not be leaving the house if, 90% was aliens. Anyway, from 1978, Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Rave X Podcast, episode 108, Paranoia. This is a movie that came out a while ago, man. It was okay. I don't know how it did at the box office. From 1998. Talk about a movie starring Will Smith and Gene Hackman. Lex Luthor himself. Gene Hackman from the old Chris Reeve Superman movies. Enemy of the State. Now this movie, you heard at the top of the show, a little clip I used, where, you know, he brings Will Smith into his sort of fortress, and he tells him, don't touch the phone. Of course, Will Smith, like, calls his wife or something, and then Gene Hackman destroys the entire building, and Will Smith says, why'd you do that? He says, because you made a phone call. Now, this whole movie's about, like, espionage and the government's, you know, tracking Will Smith for some reason. I can't even remember why. I think someone put something in his bag when he's going shopping for his wife, and he's got some information in his bag. And, you know, the CIA, the FBI, the government, it's, if you're a conspiracy theory guy, and if you think the government's coming after you, man, this movie's like a wet dream for you, because it was true in this movie, and Gene Hackman kind of used to work for them, I believe, and he is the only one who can keep Will Smith safe, and he's telling him, don't pick up the phone, don't do this, don't look out the window, and it takes Will Smith a while before he kind of understands the gravity of the situation. But again, Gene Hackman blows up an entire building because Will Smith made a phone call. And sure enough, the black SUVs start chasing him after that. So you talk about paranoid, it's funny. When I moved into the Blackbird Studios, I had to get my internet router hooked up and stuff. And I'm a gamer. You guys know that, man. I love my Xbox. I love the Call of Duty games, the shoot 'em ups, you know what I mean? I had to get my router set up and it wasn't working, so I called Comcast. And I get this guy on the phone. And coincidentally, he was a gamer, and it was really cool because he goes, all right, man, here's the deal. I'm going to open up your internet so you have no lag. You'll be faster with the other people online. You'll have no trouble finding a match. And I said, but doesn't that leave me open to, like, getting hacked or stuff? And he goes, man, I've been a gamer for 20-something years, and let me tell you, if they're going to hack you, they're going to hack you. If they're going to tap into your computer, they're just going to tap into your computer. Ain't no Comcast firewall going to do shit about it. And I said, wow, well, thank you for your help. You know what I mean? So it is kind of funny. Yeah, Enemy of the State from 1998. Everyone's paranoid. Moving on to number 1. Now, this is one of these movies I saw, this next movie. You know how when you have a cold in your home and there's nothing to do because you feel terrible, and you're just sitting there watching whatever movie's on Netflix? I caught this movie years ago from 2006, a movie called Bug, with Ashley Judd and Michael Shannon, General Zod from Man of Steel, Michael Shannon. And this is one of these movies, man, I'm just home, I'm feeling terrible, I'm in bed, body aches, coughing. And I caught this movie Bug, and I can't remember how it starts, but it's Ashley Judd and Michael Shannon in this sort of one-bedroom or studio apartment or whatever. And Michael Shannon is convincing Ashley Judd that, like, they're listening, and there are these bugs crawling all over them, and that they're doing it on purpose. And at one point, Michael Shannon takes a pair of pliers, and he pulls out his back molar because he thinks that that's how they're listening to him. And what's so crazy about this movie is that at first, Ashley Judd kind of doesn't believe him. I think they used to date. He was like her ex-boyfriend or something. And as the movie goes on, she starts to believe him, and you don't really understand why. It's not like he pled a good case, And by the time you get to the end, they both just have these marks all over themselves from scratching from these bugs, you know what I mean? But there's also, he's smoking what could be meth. They never really tell you what he's smoking. And he's just crazy. The windows are covered in aluminum foil. And what's so interesting about this movie is it's one of these movies that makes you think, is he crazy or is he telling the truth? And those are the best type of movies, where you have an unreliable narrator. At some point, there's like this bright light, and the apartment they're in starts to shake, and he's like, it's them, they're coming in a helicopter. But then by the time she gets to the door, there's nothing there. Another point, these SUVs pulls up, and a guy, like an FBI guy, comes out. And I guess Michael Shannon's character used to be a military guy, and he thinks they want him for something that he saw that he wasn't supposed to see. And so finally, this guy comes in, and he's asking about Michael Shannon. And Ashley Judd's like, well, I kind of believe him, and at least now we know where the egg sacs are. They're under our skin. We can get them. And we can take out the trackers that are in our molars that they put there. And the guy's looking at her going, yeah, okay, sure. And he sees a pipe with whatever's in it, weed, meth, whatever, and he goes, you mind if I hit this? And the guy hits the pipe and he puts it down, and he, pretty much tells him, if you guys don't come out in 5 minutes, we're going to, pretty much destroy the place. But it is crazy. You watch two people, a former couple, who used to be in a healthy, loving relationship, just divulge into paranoid schizophrenia where they're mutilating themselves because they think there's eggs under their skin. They're taking out their teeth because they think that there's trackers in their teeth. And then you have an FBI agent who comes in and kind of confirms it, that they might be telling the truth. I can't remember how it ends, man. Let's just say they all die at the end. I have no idea. But one of the freakiest movies involving paranoia from 2006, a movie called Bug. Oh my God, I was watching this movie and I started scratching and stuff. I started itching. Horrible. Well, that's going to wrap it up for me, kids. Thank you so much for tuning in. I got stuff to do, so I got to get going. Hey, my band, Choose Your Power, the greatest band you never heard of. We got some dates coming up, baby. Check us out January 5th at O'Brien's in Allston, Massachusetts. Also February 6th at the Can Tab upstairs, Cambridge, Massachusetts. And click like, subscribe, guys. There's so much things over at ravexmusic.bandcamp.com, the Rave X channel on YouTube. Choose Your Power. We've got everything you need for entertainment, music, life stories. We've got podcasts. We've got tech reviews. All of that for free. ravexmusic.bandcamp.com. And until next time, kids, do me a favor. Remember this. Just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they're not out to get you. My name's Rave X. Enjoy yourself!
That was the Rave X Podcast. Be sure to click like and subscribe. For podcasts, new music, and all things Rave X, go to youtube.com and search Rave X Music.